Hello, and thank you for joining the Real Estate Podcast with Robert Ikard. It is July 24, 2022, and this will be our 8th episode, and we are so excited to have a very special guest. Priya Kowshik is an operations leader with a career spanning over 22 years, comprising both employment and entrepreneurship. Most part of her career involved setting up and scaling up new, be it in her corporate role or entrepreneurship, where currently she is involved actively in 3 companies, 2 of them being startups. She is involved in both financial services and manufacturing sectors, ranging from providing third-party services to U.S. mortgage companies to manufacturing IoT-based smart locks and IoT-based solutioning. A university rank holder in her graduation, Priya has completed her bachelor's in commerce, master's in business administration with specialization in marketing. She holds a certificate in mortgage advice and practice from the Institute of Bankers, London, and is certified Six Sigma Black Belt. She has completed her senior management program from IIM Calcutta, one of the prestigious management institutes in India and across the globe, and is also certified in corporate social responsibility from the United Nations Institute of Training and Research in Geneva. She has served in institutions such as GE, Altisource, HDFC, ICICI Bank, etc. during her work tenure. Her entrepreneurial venture, Prologic, I may not be pronouncing that right. I'm going to let her correct me in a minute. Currently serves U.S. mortgage clients in providing third-party services from loan processing, underwriting, etc., all the way through default management, such as property preservations and inspections, title services, real estate agent services, etc. She is a lover of music and sports. She's married to Kaushik, who is also part of the businesses. Priya hails from a typical Indian joint family and grew with her parents, siblings, grandparents, uncle, aunt, and cousin all under the same roof, and firmly believes in the benefits of joint family systems and the positive impact it can have on the individual and their value systems. After spending about 12 years in Indian mortgages, Priya started her journey in U.S. mortgages in 2009 with Altisource, establishing and scaling their PPI business in the default space. For over a decade, she has been providing third-party services to various mortgage players through her company. She is also the recipient of the most promising business leaders business leaders in India, a very high honor that is only awarded to a very select few women in India, which is, as everybody should know, a very large country. She is also was a first round contender in Shark Tank, and she is a very impressive individual, and I'm so happy to have you today, Priya.
Thanks so much, Robert, for the nice introduction. Yes, you pronounced the company correct. It is Prologic. So it's proactive, logical, and with IQ. So that's what confluenced the name Prologic. So you were right about the pronunciation. And thanks so much for having me on the show. And I'm so excited to be your first female guest and also the first international guest, as I saw in your post. And that's a
Double
great
thumbs
honor.
up.
Yeah, and that's a great honor, and thanks so much. So I look forward to the podcast as much as you and everybody else.
Yes, well, we're so honored to have you, and we have a time difference and all of that, but our connection seems to be strong right now, and I'm very happy about that. And the podcast seems to be going well from a technological standpoint. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Priya, is before we get started, is I read about some of your business accomplishments, but if you wouldn't mind sharing with the audience, sort of, I read a little bit about your life, but kind of like how you became such a successful woman in business.
Okay, I wouldn't call myself as successful, so that I feel is totally a relative concept. And nobody's unsuccessful in the world, whatever we do. And so that's my firm belief. So I will just say how I landed up to where I am. So coming from a joint family and in a very conservative city in India, we never, I never had a very high ambition of becoming an entrepreneur or anything. We just let, it take the course. And so as soon as I finished my college, thankfully, which I did very well academically and also extracurricular wise. So my college came up with this opportunity with one of the leading mortgage firms in the country, which lends home loans and mortgage loans. And it was kind of I would say, as luck would have it, it was a very, very good opportunity that I didn't want to miss. Not that I intended to be in that organization, but it was a great starting point for my career. I think that event sowed the seed to where I am today. Had I landed up myself in any other industry, then I would have it would have been different course. But I'm so excited that I started with the right organization, and that was culture-wise, that was a great organization. Value-wise, that was a great organization. So I learned a lot, and that is an age, where we are easily molded, right? So we can get the right way or we can get the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's like moldable age, and at that age it's very important to be with the right people around you. And luckily, I landed up in an organization where I had beautiful set of colleagues who molded me in the initial stages. And from there it's a continuous learning process. So it's how much you're willing to learn always. So as long as we keep learning, I think things will come by to where we are. So it'll
Well,
just take us on the right path. So
Priya, sometimes I just ask questions that pop into my mind, so please excuse me.
yeah,
But
all yours.
but being a female and from a conservative place in India, I'm I I assume you had some unique challenges from that perspective.
Sure, it is. I mean, I wouldn't just say in India. In fact, even in advanced countries in the world, there is still, I mean, otherwise, why do we have to still say or give preference to women entrepreneurs or minority segment or women led companies, etc.? So across the globe,
Yes.
be it advanced country or, developing countries, women do have a challenge in terms of the support system. I think that's more from a point of the trust level that people have on women's capability. It's not so. For me, I have never identified myself with any gender when it comes to work. In a work, it's you're an employee, you have a set of job to do and you have to deliver that. That's it. So your capability does not necessarily need you to identify. I mean, the job, you should not identify yourself with any gender. You don't want to be taking an advantageous position because you're a woman, and you don't want to be giving up your rights because you're a woman and sitting in a corner. So that way, so I've never believed in identifying myself in with my gender when I go to work. Once I step out of home, I'm an individual who's supposed to do my job. That's it. Of course, yes, it does matter when we are talking about a heavy physical work. So, nature has
Correct.
created two different genders with two different set of capabilities. But for the sector we are in, I don't think it should matter whether you're a man, you're a woman. I think it's how much you can. I've been in very professional organizations that has not, hesitated to give me growth because I've been a woman, right? So in GE, I was there for about 3.5, 4 years, and every appraisal, be it a mid-year or end of the year appraisal, I've been ranked top talent in the organization. So they didn't also step back because I was a woman. So they gave enough of opportunities to lead, to deliver, and they treated at par. So it's both ways. But yeah, first we don't let ourselves being trampled. So that's the key. Don't identify yourself with any gender. It's fine. It's all friends. It's all colleagues. It's a job you do and you get back home. That's it. So
Yes.
that means I've been able. That's my personal experience, and that's worked for me. And whenever I meet people or women, address group of women, then I tell them there's no need to feel bad that you're a woman, or no, don't feel superior, don't feel inferior. Just go on a level-headed plate. So that helps.
Yes. Hard work and focus. It doesn't matter what your gender or
It doesn't.
your ethnicity. It will help you stand out in any situation. Is the way I look at it.
Yeah. So that's been the key for where I am.
So that okay. So after that first experience, tell me where your career went from then.
So after HDFC, I spent a good 6.5 years with them, and I set up one of the initial call centers in Chennai. So again, I was involved in setting up some things from scratch, and then I moved to ICICI Bank. But my tenure there was short-lived because by then I got married, and my husband had to relocate to London because he's a IT person. So family comes first, right?
Yes.
We can have as much jobs as we can across the globe, but family comes first. So we didn't want to stay apart for many years. So I moved to London with him, and I found some interesting opportunity where I could pursue my studies for me to augment my understanding of international mortgages. And there I completed my certificate in mortgage advice and practice by Institute of Bankers UK. So that's when I finished, and we were there for about a year and a half, and it was just about right time. By the time I finished, I came back to India. We moved back to India, and I joined GE. So GE, it was a totally different role. Again, it was something that the entire company, or there was no similar role in the industry. It was not that there was an existing role and it was lateral entry, or the industry had such a role. So the role that they offered me was something totally new. It was more towards detecting frauds and doing a field credit investigation before you lent the loan. So that involved all loan segments, be it personal loan, your consumer durable loan, your mortgage loan. So any asset product, before the lending exercise is complete, before the disbursement is complete, we used to undertake the field investigations that can alert you in terms of fraud, that can alert you in terms of a possible default of that loan later on. And also make sure, like today we have the employment verification and your address verification. So that used to be done physically, right? Somebody used to go to the address and verify. So that was a process. The industry did not have such a role. So they had a role after disbursement, after something gets into delinquency. They had a collections team that would do some part of this analysis. But this role involved more of, it was a new role in the industry. So that was what was exciting for me. So I look, it always keeps you on the toes, thinking and strategizing when you're starting something new, right? So it's so much exciting when you're doing something new always. So I just love that role, and I was handling about 4 states in India with about 25 locations where this had to be controlled, and then advising risk on the policy changes based on the study and investigations. So it used to be a lot of field work, a lot of traveling, going to these cities, going to the physical addresses, making sure the observations are there. Many kinds of frauds happen. You don't even have an address, we get an address proof, right? It was not a digital time then, right? So it's not
Right.
like today that you're able to have multiple sources of verification. So that was a challenge, but yes, that role went on well. And I received a couple of awards from GE for that as well. And that's when I activity as an organized structure. Till then, we were doing some work for the community, in bits and pieces. But in GE, the best part of the company was they had this GEL fund that where you could contribute physically to the society, to the community you live in. And it was pretty organized. It came as an organized structure. So I was part of GEL fund as well. So, contributing to the CSR activities. And that was the time tsunami struck. So, the lot of, loss of life, loss of property, rehabilitating those people, finding them alternate jobs, alternate ways of living, because they've lost their boats, they've lost their houses. So all that gave me a little more realistic perspective, working in difficult situations with people who are stranded, it increases, it kind of gives you a jerk. And, I was like, what are we doing sitting in a cozy comfort of home? So, I got closely involved more and more with GEL Fund as long as I was there. And whatever we could contribute little, we did in terms of physical activity, rehabilitating. We adopted a village with about 168 families, gave children the education, bought them new boats and nets, etc., as part of GE, and
Oh, that's
implementing the
nice.
program. So as part of implementing that program as well. So it was a very nice experience I had in GE. But then, life took me to Altasource right after GE. And
Okay.
Altasource was my
GE is
first.
not a bad company to have on in your
Awesome.
background. That was quite a. I mean, it's not what it used to be, but back in the day, it was a powerhouse.
Yeah, it was I was in the consumer finance department, and we realized a lot of they kind of tapering down a little bit. So, but I had beautiful opportunity in Altasource as well, and I thought I should move to US mortgages. And that was my first entry into US mortgages, and I'm so glad to have started my career with Aquin. And there I set the PPI department. So that's again setting up something from scratch, literally scratch, right? So when I went, it was about 20-30 people business, and then we took it to about 200-300 people business with about 4,000 vendors across US. So I like the growth.
So you were in on the ground floor of that business.
Oh yes, I grounds up. We developed the PPI department for Altasource grounds up. So that was way back in 2009 when the subprime was at all-time high, and we were managing lots of properties across US. So that was my again first time experience in US mortgages.
Let's
And
hope we
then
don't return to that.
I hope that too, right? So business is one thing, but who you are as a person comes first. So I hope that too. But yes, so that was where the starting point was.
Well,
So
before we continue, I do remember those times, and I'm looking at today, and I'm looking at the possibility of a coming recession. Um, and then, but I remember those days. There were many homes that they were buying and selling and flipping, and easy money, easy mortgages, and but I was living in Florida at the time, and there were entire communities where there were no people in them. And then they would have a commercial strip center in the front of these communities to serve the people in the community, but there was no people. It was house flippers, flipping and flipping and flipping, and it was just unbelievable driving around looking at these communities. Some of them were finished, some of them were partly finished, and as I like to say, when the music stopped, it was unbelievable how many people were not living in those homes. That's why I'm a little bit more optimistic about things now, because the it wasn't really fun, I'm sure, for the mortgage industry and for a lot of people having the additional restrictions. But now there's homes that there's just not a lot of empty homes. So I think there's going to be a lot less chance of that happening at this point. Do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah, and way back then and now, one significant change, if I may add, is also the amount of equity people had in those properties, right? So now the amount of equity people have in the property is pretty high. So it wouldn't go to such a default state as much as it was in way back in
Yes.
2009. there's literally no equity in the property. So, you have 100% funding, 97% funding, or, a very high funding from the bank, and you're left with no job, etc. One, the recession will not be as bad as what it used to be in 2007-8, right? And number one. Number two, the amount of equity is high, so people will still look at retaining the properties, and your investors and banks still have a backup that they don't have to foreclose these properties as much as they did earlier. And also the concept of REO is moving out and rentals is coming in. So now it's instead of REO, it's moving towards rentals. So I think that ways the amount of properties available for foreclosures and sale will also be not as much as 2009, and the economy will correct itself, because the reason why there was a recession in 2008 2001 is totally different from the reason that we have currently. So and it's easier to pick up the market from here. The rates are high, it's going to take time, but I don't see the default market. There will be defaults, but will we have so many foreclosures and resale and evictions what we saw in 2009? I don't think so. I think it's going to be a much better time now, even though we will be entering a recession. That's totally my perspective, but
but that's a perspective that I
want to tell you that.
Well, yes, but that's a perspective I very much wanted to hear, because you have a better understanding of this than I do. And the audience would like to know too, because there's a lot of real estate investors that listen to this podcast, and it's just, but I did interrupt your flow. I apologize for that, but I did not want to forget that question. So go ahead and continue with what you were saying.
So, as you know, in all the years I was doing nights, right? And my husband then went into an IT company in India, and he was doing day. So, he used to go to work in the morning, and I used to go to work pretty much in the evenings. And we met on Saturdays, Sundays. And when we did have, a few months of this, and then we said, no, it's just two of us at home, right? So we were in a different city, so our parents were not with us, as the case is usually in India. But so it was just two of us. And we said, okay, what are we doing? At some point of time, one of us is always alone. And again, family comes first. So I said, okay, let me, find something else. And that was when my husband suggested, okay, why don't you start something on your own? Because you've been in this industry, and there is so much that you can do for people. The pain points in this industry. And he said, you can do so much more. Why don't you try something on your own? So he's more of the entrepreneurial kind, right? So I'm okay with the corporate world, and I've been happy there. So he suggested this, and I said, okay, fine, let me give a try. And that's how everything started. And it's been going on. So it's been about 8-9 years since we started ProLogic, and I'm happy. I'm so happy to be part of the US mortgage industry and serving some clients that we have today. We work with some of the leading clients in the industry today, and we've kind of grown there. We have a good name.
What is your position at ProLogic?
So I'm a partner and CEO at ProLogic. And of course, during the course for the last 4 years, I've also been associated with 2 manufacturing companies, predominantly in the IoT space. So we were in the real estate space in any case, right? And then we decided securing. We used to do a lot of securing, and I'm part of that industry, that part of mortgages. So then we thought, okay, why don't we start something, that can cater to the Indian market in terms of security product, which is basically an IoT-based product. So
and for the benefit of our audience, what is IoT?
It's a Internet of Things, where you're using technology, your internet. It's similar. Okay, if I were to give you an example, your smart home, we're talking about smart home where you're opening your garage or opening your house from wherever you are, right? So sitting here, I can access my home, I can open it for somebody, I can have a log of who's accessed my property, I can switch on the AC, I can open my curtains, or whatever, So all that works on the smart home technology, the security industry related to smart home. And then you have so many commercial applications of Internet of Things. So basically, where you're using internet in some kind of a hardware or any other application that you can use to make it more smarter, make it more controllable, and make it more efficient. So it could be, multiple technologies are available throughout the globe, and that's one industry the entire world is expanding. I would say exponentially in that space.
And tell me more about ProLogic now that you're the CEO and founder and partner. And
Yes.
tell me about the business. Tell me the extent of the business, where you do business. I want to know about those things if you don't mind.
I live in a beautiful city called Coimbatore, right? For all the US viewers who know Sadhguru, yoga, meditation. So I live in the same land as, same city as Sadhguru's meditation center is, which is the Isha Yoga. But yeah, the city, actually it's a tier 2 city. So in India, we classify city based on the financial, the GDP of that city, the outcome, the number of people, all of that. So we classify as metros, basically tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So I'm in a tier 2 city. In terms of the availability of people, like, in my city, we are about at least 100 engineering colleges. So around 2 miles from me, within a radius of 2 miles, I have about 6 engineering colleges.
My goodness.
We have a lot of people whom we can recruit. So there are young minds, fresh minds, very capable and talented people who come out of colleges from my city, who get positioned everywhere across the globe. And this is a very weather-wise, it's very, very conducive place. And it's not as busy as Bangalore or a Mumbai or a Chennai where you get stuck in traffic. So we're still, a little better off as far as traffic is concerned. And of course, the associated cost, your attrition rate, your turnover rates are pretty low because of the kind of opportunities that the other city offers. So this is like a little less opportunities for people to go out and, hop companies to companies. So that way my attrition has been pretty low. So at one point of time, we're like about 110 people. And, this year we're looking to grow. Right now, about 70 people in the office. And we run 24/7 shifts. So we cater to originations, we cater to default space, everything, right? So all through in mortgages, predominantly default, but everywhere. All the entire life cycle of mortgage, we are capable of providing third-party services. So we run
So
a 24.
that's the main thing you all do is third party loan services. Is that
Oh,
correct?
yes. Sorry, I didn't give it to you in a capsule. Yes, we do third-party servicing for the US mortgages market.
Yes.
So
because as many of us know, when you get a mortgage from a bank, it can quickly be sold to a third party services company to be serviced, correct?
Yeah, so that is, yes. So what we do is typically provide your back office support instead of you holding all the people there and working set of hours. So we provide the complete back office support for you in terms of the people, the infrastructure, giving you a 24/7 operations. So and enabling more efficiency. So there are a lot of people who outsource just for the sake of cost, right? But
Right.
that's not the point, or that should not be the objective of outsourcing. So if cost is the only consideration for you to outsource, then you should probably look at just automation and leave it there, right? But that's not the only reason why you should be looking for outsourcing, or you're looking at a partner to handle your work. So there are many other things that come up with using a third-party service provider. One is your cost of hiring, right? On a typical average in terms of hiring an agent, you'll probably incur about $2,000, and look at the attrition rate you have. So we talk anywhere between a call center agent having an attrition of around 30-40% in that industry, and even the BPO industry is much higher. We have an 80-90% attrition rate out there. So here, and then the cost of hiring, the cost of training, and loss of man hours because somebody leaves and you get a new person. So look at all the costs that you're going to be incurring, and of course the ramp up and ramp down during your peaks and troughs. So all these shocks, external influences where you don't have much of control, and these are something that your outsourcing partner can take on, and all those risks is something that they can handle for you, right? So you are eliminating all those risks from your processes or your business totally. So you ramp up your outsourcing partner should be ramped up. Of course, how you select your partner is a totally different question. So we'll come to that in a little while, because you can't work with anybody and everybody. You need to be very careful in selecting your partner, outsourcing partner. But yes, so what this can offer you is just not cost. Don't look at this as a cost saving exercise alone. Look at the value that it adds to you in terms of ability to ramp up, ramp down, your reduction in hiring time, your reduction in getting to speed in processes. If you take a typical origination, the cost of originating a loan today ranges between 7,000 to say $9,000, right? And then you also have number of touch points. You have a 45-day process time. That's the industry average that people take 30, 45 days to close a loan right from the start. 4-5 touches of an underwriter to complete a loan process. So if we're talking about a process, one single process, which is an origination, that warrants so much of an improvement, right? So that improvement can come from automation. That improvement can come from adding more people who work at different hours. You look at a process that can run 24 hours. So by the time you leave some work for me in the evening, your next day, you already have the results. You don't, there is no idle time. We have a concept in lean, right? In Six Sigma lean. Waiting time is a wastage. So what are the 7 type of waste, 9 type of waste? Today we are expanding the type of wastes as well. Transportation is a wastage. Waiting time is a big wastage. The exact processing time for a loan, assuming there is zero wait time, would just be, anywhere just about 5-6 hours maximum if everything was available and everybody were available and every process is available. The exact processing time for a loan should not take more than 5 to 6 hours, assuming everything is available. But today it takes days together. That's because there's a lot of waiting time at each touch point.
Yes.
So the entire concept of lean works on reducing your wait time, which is one of the major wastages in the BPO space. So, that's what we also function. So we have a 24/7, a continuous process that we run. So there's typically no wastage or waiting time that's available. I mean, that's passed on to the customer otherwise. So there's a lot of value that we add as a third party service provider, providing people. I'm talking generally as an industry. That's one critical reason that people do look at associating with partners in this space. And that's where we come in. So whether you take origination, whether you take title, whether you take default, etc. So we come in, one, with the knowledge that we can do the job. Two, the value that we add, not just in cost. Cost is definitely a bonus. You save about 50% associated cost on labor, right? So that's a big bonus, but that's just not what the point for you to consider whether you want to use a third party service provider cross country, yes or no. You also need to evaluate the other parameters and whether you really want to do this exercise, and if yes, who needs to be a partner, so on and so forth. So we can get into selection of vendors, etc. later on, but yes, answering your question, this is what ProLogic does.
Well, now where do you do business, and where are your customers located? Not all of them, but your primary or your main customers.
So we are not location centric. Our process, we can deliver across all the 50 states in US, but my predominantly right now it's Florida and central US. But yes, we have clients that we've served all over the US. So the location doesn't really matter, because even the clients that we work with have properties across the US.
And also in other parts of the world as well?
No, currently ProLogic is exclusively for US mortgages.
Okay.
But yeah, we would be excited to have opportunities outside the globe slowly. But right now we just do US.
Well, I'll tell you what, you are a good salesperson. And so I think if other people listen in other countries, they'll be contacting you. And you know what? I always try to remember at the end, but Sometimes I don't remember. Why don't you give us your contact information before right now, and then we don't forget.
Yeah. So
If
the
somebody wanted to
company.
contact you.
Sure, sure. So somebody can reach me at 973-419-5555. That's a US number. And
Say that
Sreepriya,
one
that's,
more time for us, please.
it's 973-419-5555. A
Okay.
very simple way of reaching us is get to the Prologic website, prologiq.in, prologic.in. We are a member of NAMS, so you can just go to the NAMS website and find us there. You'll find us on our website, so all the contact information is there. So yeah, I'll be glad to hear from people in case you want additional information on what they do.
Good. And so you work with financial institutions, obviously, right?
Dominantly servicing companies,
Okay.
and of course mortgage lenders and mortgage brokers and bankers. So that's on the underwriting side. So we also do work with appraisers. So we can do the complete BPO and appraisal here, and submit, obviously, get into the MLS, get the data, and give. We don't give the final recommendation because, see, a vendor, when you choose, you have to make sure that they understand the US compliance as well. So for us, we do only the jobs that we are absolutely allowed to do as per the compliance regulations in the US. We also make sure that we're completely compliant on what we need to do as far as people is concerned in India. So we don't give valuation, the value of the property, or we don't give the exact recommendation on the title, because that's not what we're supposed to be doing. But we do assist them in collating that information, so that they can have another third eye check on it and give their recommendation, because they are professionals, they are certified people. So we do the complete back office, we do the supporting system, we can arrive at the adjustments of the property, pull up the comparables and all of that, but we don't give the recommendations to people, because that's not what we're supposed to be doing.
So how many employees do you have?
So right now about 70 plus working around the clock, but we are hiring some more. So we will be next month, we'll be about 100, 110 very shortly.
Wow, that's really some good growth.
Expanding on that space, yes.
If I might comment, when your husband encouraged you to be an entrepreneur, I think that was one brilliant idea, because you seem to be doing very well.
God's grace. So whatever we have today, it's only God's grace, and I thank for that. Let's see. So there's so many capable out, and there are many companies in India who do this. So this is a big industry, and US is a big market. We are super excited to be working alongside US people, and that's one great thing. So this cross-cultural, cross-country relationships actually get strengthened with a lot of these transactions. So we work with companies that we just love our clients, and the way they treat us, the way we interact with them. Better ways of doing things. Where not all processes you should just give to a third party. So wherever you can bring in automation, you should bring in automation, because in a long term, that's what is going to reduce the cost. And then we also suggest them, we look at their processes, review their processes, and suggest which of the process should be offshored, which of them should not. For example, a relationship activity with your client or vendors, that is not something, personally, I don't recommend my clients to offshore those kind of activities to us, right? So that relationship should always lie with the core client. So we tell them, I will do something where we don't come to the forefront. We don't come in between. We don't represent you in terms of your relationship with your vendors or your clients, because these are the two pillars in which the entire mortgage industry runs: your customers and your vendors, right? So those relationships we don't want to take off, and we say, okay, I will do everything possible to get you to make that process more efficient. But if you want to talk to your client, I'm not going to be doing your sales or client interactions or talking or attending your client calls. So that's front ending. You do all the front ending. Similarly, if you have a process that is not streamlined at your end yet, if you've not worked out how to execute that process in a combination of system and people that you are, the system that you have and the people that you have. If you have not perfected the process, that may not entirely be necessary to be a good process to be offshored, right? Or to be handled by a third party vendor. If you want a successful experience with a third party vendors, the first is set your objective correctly. Why do you want to even offshore? Number two, selection of vendor is a very, very key activity. So do they know the job? One more key influencer for selecting your vendor will be your data security, right? So you have to make sure that the data is secure, the infrastructure is secure, they are able to, they don't, store much of information at their end. They are able to just store the minimalistic information, and they're protecting that information in the best way possible. You don't have too many instances with a data breach or anything like that in the past with any other client. A certified company, a compliant company, all that matters. So for example, I can tell you most of the reputed company who handle this kind of a job, we have cameras. Of course, we don't even let mobile phones on the floor. So you can't carry the agents cannot carry the cell phone on the floor. So
Very
we don't,
interesting, because
right?
that as a person, like for example, if I was with a mortgage brokerage or a financial institution and we were offshoring the servicing, security would be my primary concern.
Yes. So as much as it's your concern, it's more concern for us as the owner of the business. And we go to any extent to make sure the customer data is very secure. So we don't let cell phones on the floor. We don't have any copying device. So all our systems have been disabled. Your CD drives have been disabled, right? Your USB copying has been disabled. Your firewalls to protect and define, these are the exact sites that you can actually get into. You can't go to your personal Yahoo or mail or Hotmail or anything in your office computers. And of course, over and above, we have cameras. We have VPN connectivity that connects to the server and monitors every activity that you do with related to the office computers or office access that we give you. So there's so many security measures. We don't even give emails to staff unless it's warranted. So there are a set of people who will communicate with the clients, and every agent need not communicate with the client. So you're given a set of job, we set the process in such a way that people understand we kind of fragment the process for more efficiencies. And wherever the agent needs to communicate with our client to customers is where they have the email ID. There are processes where everybody need not communicate with the client. So we kind of restrict, because you give an email, then you need to monitor those emails and make sure they're not copying any data, right? So we have a very, very close control on data and security, and most reputed organizations in India actually do that. So that's why we've been able to have a very good amount of business covered in this part of the world related to US mortgages. And I think that should be one of the key considerations while selecting a vendor. Make sure that they are able to maintain your data very securely. And then your rates do come, rates are important, but they do come in priority number 3 or 4. The first is data security. The second is, I would say, how well they are able to execute the job. I mean, just for a $50, $100 difference, you pick up somebody who doesn't know the job well, then you're going to be landing much more, shelling out much more cost in terms of your compliance. Or, for example, you're supposed to do a vacant property registration, say within 10 days of foreclosure, 20 days of foreclosure, and your vendor is not compliant. He may charge you less, but then you're going to be bearing the fines and fees, right? So just small examples. So your rates do come. They are important while you're checking off on the vendor scorecard, but that's going to be 4th on the priority list after your knowledge, after your data security, and after their ability to execute the process efficiently. And of course, it's very, very important that before handing over a process to a third-party servicer, we perfect the process internally and give them a complete SOP, and then have a good documented process to be handed over to the vendors. Otherwise, the kind of governance cost, the kind of control that we're going to be having on the vendor delivery is going to be, very challenging to monitor and execute. So we probably want to perfect it and then hand over. Something that's messy here is not a good environment or a good process to be handed over to a third party vendor. So you still want to perfect it a little bit here and then give the documented process to the vendor to say, because the contracts needs to be very good and very clear and very, you need to write out everything in black and white for them to understand and make sure both of them are on the same page.
And it sounds like you run a very tight ship.
Yes, we have to, because we've been, we sign up an SLA with a client for a 95% accuracy on every order that we do. And we've always delivered much more than that, and clients are very happy. So that's not going to be possible unless we are able to do. And I'm very happy to share, over the last 10 years, we've not had a single data security instance or a breach or anything like that. And yes, there's quite amount of control that we need to exercise to make sure that this consistently remains as well. So,
well, now I see that you won the most promising business leader in India. Can you show for the camera a little closer that certificate?
Okay. So luckily I'm sitting in the office and I can, yes. So.
Wow, that is quite an honor. Tell me more about how you received that honor.
So this is from the Economic Times group. So there is Femina, which is a women-led magazine, and yeah, this is Economic Times is a very famous media house in India. Of course, they research multiple women across the country, and they have their internal scoring mechanism. So we are not privy to how they score or how they select, but yeah, so they found me, that yeah, okay, fine, let's go give her. So there were 50 women in India who were chosen for the award in 2021, and I'm glad that I was one among them.
And
what is well deserving, but yeah, so.
Well, that is amazing. What is the current population of India?
Oh, we are 1 billion.
1 billion?
Yeah. Don't ask me numbers. So I'm going to say.
I think it's over 1 billion.
I think 1 second. Sorry, I got it wrong. So we are about 138 crores. It's about 138 crores people, right? That's 1.38 billion to be precise.
Okay, so about 1 billion more than the United States.
We are the second most populated country in the world, and we will soon overtake China. Looks like we are, increasing our population. I think there was a study that said, the next few years we should be taking over China as the world's most populated country. You'll find a lot of people here. So I invite you to India, Robert, and have a feel of this place. It's different. So in US, when you travel from one place to another, the language is the same. The feel is mostly the same, of course. Here, you travel, 100 miles across from where I sit. The language is different. The culture is different. So it's there all across the country, and every state has got a different language, different culture, different rituals. You have almost all the religions in the world coexisting in this place, and this is the world's largest democracy. So you'll find a lot of things interesting in this country, and years of living in this country you cannot explore enough. So
it sounds very interesting. And
spiritual journey, understand purpose of life, and this is the place to be in. Who want to do a lot of IT stuff, who want to be in the technology space. India produces a lot of IT guys, IT engineers. So we are very good in manufacturing as well, and agriculture has been our predominant source of employment for many Indians for ages, and we have a very rich history. So I come from a land which speaks the oldest language in the world. So my mother tongue is called Tamil, and a little bit of a personal history out here. So we speak the oldest language in the world.
Wow.
And yeah, so you can research. Tamil is the oldest language in the world, and Sanskrit comes second. And again, so most of our religious text in Hinduism is Sanskrit. And of course, we coexist with every other religion in the world in this country. So
In that language, would you say, "Hi, Robert, how are you doing today?"
in Tamil,
Yes.
okay, you say Vanakkam, Robert. எப்படி இருக்கீங்க? I
Okay,
want you to
nice.
repeat that, okay? You say vanakkam. So our traditional way of greeting anybody involves, joining your hands in form of namaste, right? So we say vanakkam. So this is how we greet. It's like your salute, right? So it's
Very
like
nice.
vanakkam. So vanakkam, Robert. So that's
Thank you.
hello, Robert types. Yeah.
Vanakkam,
So
Priya.
yeah, it has a lot of thing to do with your energy levels around your body, and how you interact. We follow has got a lot of scientific research already gone. Obviously, this culture has been pretty old, so people have spent a lot of time researching and developing all this. So I'm very interested in that part of the life as well, in terms of understanding the science behind every action or every practice that we follow out here. So that's a very interesting space to explore.
That is interesting. Let me ask you a question that popped into my mind. As a
Mhm.
manager of people,
Mhm.
you're shortly going to be managing over 100 people and employees. What do you do? What do you have any unique perspectives on hiring, and also once you've hired, to know who you should keep, who you should promote, who you should let go?
Yeah, very interesting question. It's always, people say, I don't stick on to a job because of the company. They stick on to a job because of the manager, right? So we've got the employee turnover, and how people respond to situations in the organization, how volunteering they are, and what's their level of productivity. It's got a great deal to do with the management and the immediate manager. So when it comes to hiring, our first go-to would be our existing employees. And we've found people who come through references are a very good fit initially, because one, they understand the culture of the organization much faster, and they are comfortable because the person who's referred is also within the organization. They probably know them well, right? So one, it's not a total alien that we are bringing into the organization. So they already start with some kind of a relationship with the organization. They're comfortable, right? They have people around in the organization. So settling down in an unventured company versus settling down in a company where I already have a friend or a relative is much more easier. And number two, from our perspective, our current employees know what the management expects, know the work culture here. So when they refer people, it's usually people who fit into that culture very well. So they don't refer people just out without doing a background check. So when they come back, and they know, when I'm referring people, I'm taking responsibility for that person's delivery initially, or their person's behavior in the office. So they also refer people who will fit into the culture. So the first go-to point is our existing employees. And we tell them, we're trying to look out for such and such person. And we found that to be successful, those hires. Obviously, when we do a hiring, we do a lot of checks. So there is a background check. We go way back to their 10th, the high school and high secondary results. We look at their Aadhaar. We call it Aadhaar here, which is akin to your social security there. So we do that check. We do if they're employed, we do a verification check of their employment. We do verify the originals, and then give them back all the college certificate. We do the educational background. So we do a lot of check before we hire an employee, whether known or otherwise. So there a lot of filter will happen. Obviously, when you're hiring a fresher, it's very easy. Before going to the market, we also have, as I told you, I live in a city that has a lot of colleges.
Yes.
So for us, campus hiring gets very easy. So we can actually go to, suppose I want somebody who's got a commerce background or an arts background. It's easy for me to just go hop into a college that's like 1 mile away and tell them, okay, I'm looking for candidates in this profile. Or if I want an engineering candidate, it's very easy for me to hop into an engineering college and see. And we have a very close connection with the industry and academia. As a country, we always work together, and it's easy for us to go do a lot of campus hiring, and that way, so the city is filled with colleges. So recruiting has never been a problem, and we treat them well. So for me as a manager, you teach them the job and you don't interfere much and just have an overall control. You let them do the job, they're fine. And we don't micromanage. I don't believe in micromanaging too much. My managers are there to take care. So you have to just look at the skews, only the outliers, and look at why such an delivery was made, in case there were errors or in case it's a learning period or whatever. Otherwise, as long as they're doing well, you tell them this is the objective. People have been pretty much responsible. And
I totally agree with that. I don't like micromanaging either. I think if you have good people, they don't need to be micromanaged.
Absolutely.
And it's actually detrimental to the relationship if you have good people and you're micromanaging them.
Yeah, so you just let them do the job, and when they need help, we're always there. So we help them when necessary. Most of the time that I spend is more towards strategy, more towards client interaction, more towards bringing more business into the organization, and doing the high-level strategy and the low-level strategy. So that is where a lot of people need help. So that's a duty of the management, and I think that's where we are. And of course, we also have to learn. So learning is a continuous exercise for the management as well. So there is one industry mortgage, but there is so many more things to do. So as a continuous learning process, if you have to venture out to multiple other industries, it's very important that we keep abreast of what's happening, and we also have to continuously keep learning. So that's where we spend time, learning and communicating, and leave the job for people to do and just help them when they need. So they're good. So you just have to trust them to do the job.
Yes. Let me ask you this. Tell me about your Shark Tank, being a finalist on Shark Tank.
Oh yeah, it's I'm just glad that we made it to the top. So I closely watch US Shark Tank, and being an entrepreneur, I run a couple of startups as well in the manufacturing sector, as I told you. And when Shark Tank was coming to India and they had called for applications, I applied on the last day, right? Because first few days I didn't even believe that I could make it, so I just let it pass. And when my brother-in-law told me, hey, why don't you apply? And I just let it pass. But I got it again from my son-in-law and said, okay, why don't you apply? I said, okay, fine. And I had zero hopes of making into the final. And as I understand now, there were about 62,000 applicants for the first season. And then suddenly I received after the call for the first round. And then they said, okay, now you're the first round, please go fill up these forms and do a short video. No, I said, okay, fine. I did the first round. Again, I had a zero expectation on the outcome. So to be very frank, I haven't won a single rupee in any lottery or any, potluck or anything at all, over my entire life. So I've not been, this lucky to get the on the spot picks and things like that. So I've not been that type. So I had zero expectation when I went to the second round as well. And then we kind of progressed, and they said, okay, why don't you come for a pre-audition to Bangalore? Bangalore is not too far, so it's about 350 kilometers from here. So I said, okay, fine, and went there, and they liked the product. They asked a lot of questions in the pre-audition round. Obviously, they had to filter out from 62,000. You have to come to less than 200, right? So throughout the country, and they get so many people with so much of expectation, so many different ideas. So they had to select the best one that fit into, number one, the possibility of funding. It should be a good product, and the viewers should relate to it, right? To the product, to the program, etc. So we completed the audition, and then after a few days, we cleared the audition, and they said, "Okay, come. Now is your final shooting, and it's a live. It's not a live, but there's only a single take." And this is the first time we were in front of a formal production house or studio and things like that. So experience very, very good. So to have made it to the final 114 who got telecasted from over 62,000, it was a 6-month journey, and it was pretty exciting for us. And I just thank God that we made it, and we're so glad to have been in front of the entire country and been telecasted.
What was the product or service that you brought before Shark Tank?
Yes, so we manufacture the locks, smart locks, the IoT product, right?
Right.
So that's the product that we actually brought to the show.
Nice.
That's the product. So they liked it. The judges liked it, and they had a lot of good words. So luckily, we don't have too many Mr. Wonderfuls here in the show.
Yeah.
But everybody out there is so nice, and we did have very good judges and very good comments on the product. So which I think a lot of audience are related to it. And the best part is subsequently when you travel to different cities, when you're part of different trade shows, you have people coming, "Hey, I saw you on Shark Tank. Can I take a picture with you?" "Oh wow, I always feel like a celebrity already." So so that was a good part of it after the show. But jokes apart, it's increased the visibility of the product, visibility of the company. So I'm thankful we made it. So
Yes.
thanks to
Well,
all my team who made the product, and the other, the founder, directors, and everything of the company. I'm just the face of the company, but the actual work is by the entire team. Yeah.
yes. Well, I've been very happy to have you as our guest, our first female guest and our first international guest. It's been a wonderful interview. I really want to thank you for your time. I know you're a very busy woman, and I just want to really thank you again for your giving us the time.
Thank you, Robert, and thanks so much for having me on the show.